All righty, I'm coming. All right, for those watching, I am looking at outlines. We have outline number 1, we have outline number 2, we have a fused outline. You've got plenty of stuff. Awesome. Okay, and okay, this is your fused. Did you do 2 others?
Yes, but I don't care for them because they're not fused.
Beautiful. You have tons of stuff. You have tons of stuff. All right, and there's source 1, source 2. Beautiful, and all typed up. Awesome. Dalton, you completely forgot. You are in good company. You are not the only one. It is okay. Do you have any questions? If you didn't bring your outline, do you have any questions? Yes. No, you don't have to. I just wanted to make sure everybody knew the process. And do you feel like you did 2 outlines? Okay, good. This week, let's just talk about our writing first. And I was going to say get it over with so we can do the fun stuff. That is not what I want to communicate at all, but that's how I feel today. This week, I want you to, I don't trust their markers. I'm going to use my marker. I would like you to write your 3-paragraph paper from your fused outline. And there's something I didn't mention to put on your fused outline, and you'll click with this immediately, you'll remember. Technically, I should have said, don't panic, you have your fused outline here, and you have your points, and then 2, and then 3, and we need a clincher. Do you remember the clincher? So usually I have you write that in the outline to remind you. You could jot it down in your outline, or you can just write down a note to yourself, or maybe you have a wonderful memory and you will not forget. But just to remind, yes. It's okay. Makes me feel better about myself to do that. Just to remind you what a clincher is. Well, you tell me, what's a clincher? Somebody tell me. Yeah, Matthew. A recap of the first sentence. Beautiful. So if my topic is dinner parties, we're going to call them DP for short. So I'm getting lazy today. Dinner parties. And my topic sentence may be something like this. Roman dinner parties were fun, fascinating, and fantastic. And now I just did my alliteration for it too. Now in the clincher, I need to repeat or reflect some keywords, some important words from my topic sentence. Dinner parties seems to be important words, and probably Roman. And the fun, fabulous, and fantastic are negotiable. They're not really that important words. So in my clincher, I will repeat those words. For instance, if you had been able to attend a Roman dinner party, you would have had a good time. And I've repeated the words Roman dinner party. I don't have to repeat the exact same words. I can reflect them. It's hard to think of a word that means the same as Roman, but dinner parties is what's another word for dinner party? A social gathering involving food. That seems like a really long. What? Oh, okay, yes. Probably we should stick to the same language in our paper. But I don't have to use the same words. So if Owen was going to do pottery and utensils for one of yours, like dishes. So pottery, dishes, utensils, silverware, we would call them silverware, whether they're silver or not. And we can repeat or reflect. We don't have to use the exact same words. But that is your clincher, just to remind you, yes. Do you remember? You know what? If you have a good enough vocabulary to do so. But I'm gonna grade it for case and tense and number. I will do it. Okay. But you're also going to have to alliterate. And do you know how to do a gerund in Latin? So that might be kind of tough. Because reminding you. Oh, actually, it was a participle, not a gerund we want. We need to include 3 things in our paper. Remember? Simile. What is a simile again? Hey, we need to bring it down a notch. We need to calm down just a little bit. I still want you to be lively and interested, but we need to just like one notch, not 5 notches, one notch. What is a simile? Jesse. It's an analogy that's not very similar. I feel like we need a better definition. That is right. A comparison of two things using like or as. But I know what you mean. He means we don't want the two things we're comparing to be exactly alike, because it's not a good simile. The throw rug was like a carpet. No, they're both rugs. Those things are almost exactly alike. You know, the beagle was like a basset hound. No, they're almost, my dogs very well, they're pretty close. We need two things that are alike, but really only in one area, but not in every area. And I don't know if you noticed that Mr. Church, in the Aeneid for Boys and Girls retelling, just packs on the similes. So I highlighted all the ones that I found in your reading. They went through the city as fierce as hungry wolves. Did they go on all fours? No. Did they drool? I don't know if wolves drool. No. Did they bite people? Probably not. We don't know. But in what way were they like wolves? Or what way were the soldiers prowling through Troy like wolves? Okay, they're dangerous and they're looking for some sort of prey, right? They're looking for, if you're Greek, you're looking for Trojan or vice versa. Pyrrhus, Achilles' son. He wore shining armor of bronze and was as bright as a great snake, which has slept in his hole all the winter, and when the spring begins, comes out with a new shining skin into the sunshine and lifts his head high and hisses with his forked tongue. I will tell you why, Jesse. I'm so glad you asked. Because Homer in the Iliad and the Odyssey, and Virgil in the Aeneid, because he's kind of copying Homer to some extent, they loved something called epic similes. This is what we call an epic simile. So when you say the soldiers were as fierce as wolves, that's just a normal simile. But when you say the soldiers were as fierce as wolves when they come out of their dens after a long winter and they're hungry and they're prowling the savannah, or wolves don't live on the savannah. They're prowling the woods and looking for the timid hare that is just sticking his nose out and sniffing the air to see if it is safe. That's an epic simile. When you get to the end of it, you sometimes forget what we were talking about. So there's one in the Iliad where he says the soldiers are like bees. You know, they're busy and all the activity. They buzz like bees around a hive in the middle of summer next to a meadow full of clover, where they go from flower to flower and sip the sweet nectar and bring it back to their homes for their children and make honey. And it goes on and on. I'm not kidding. I'm not making this up. Those are epic similes. And Alfred Church in this retelling is trying to recreate those for you. You do not have to write an epic simile for me. But if you want to, just go for it. Yes, Jesse.
Oh, okay. Well, that sounds like it should be an assignment to this paper. But also, how far can you go? Like, how long can I make this?
There's simile?
Yeah.
You know what? If you guys want to experiment with an epic simile, you can go for it. You can push the envelope and I will read it. But Jesse, it needs to make sense. And Owen, you wanted to say something, didn't you? Did you have a question? Okay, I'll get to that in a minute. And gerunds, it was participles we wanted to use, not gerunds, but yes. Hey guys, can we not talk when someone else is talking? I don't remember. That's a terrible answer to a student. I have it all planned out on my notes of things that we're going to add. But I also tried to mix it up. So the things that we did last year, we didn't do again. I picked new figures of speech so that you could experiment with different things. So I'm trying to do a different crop, so that when people rotate through the classes, they get to experiment with different things. So did we do parallelism last year? Okay, then we probably aren't doing it in this class this year. Did we? Okay, well, maybe I was lazy when I planned this. But then maybe we are doing parallelism. I planned this many, many months ago, and I don't remember. That's a good question, though. We have, here, I'll give you one last simile, because this isn't so long. It's not so epic. It's the moment when King Priam and Queen Hecuba and their daughters are crowded in the temple, and the Greeks are after them, and they're killing all of them, and they're holding on to the altar because this is a sign that you're in a sanctuary place. Don't kill me, I'm holding on to the altar. It says, they were like to a flock of doves, which have been driven by a storm into a wood. All right. So they're not feathered, and don't have beaks, but they are timid, and they are flocking, and they are sheltering like doves would. That's the way they are alike. Yes.
How long would it take for something to be considered a epic?
I think anything hey, Matthias, that I just read is technically a flock of doves sheltering from anytime you say the blank is like a blank, and then you expound on it, you're starting into an epic simile. So if I said, her eyes were like pools of water, that's just a basic simile. Her eyes were like pools of water in a wood where the sun is beating down between a gap in the trees, and it shines on the blue water, and it is so still that you can see the fish at the bottom. That would be an epic simile. Anytime I start explaining more about the thing it's like. Does that make sense? Okay. So, and you can go wild on that. And sometimes Homer goes a whole half a page on that. And sometimes it's just a slight description, a sentence. Okay, we're doing alliteration. Tell me what alliteration is, please. Jesse, go for it.
Alliteration is 3 words, and it's wherever the words have similar syllables so that they sound like similarly. And there are like 3 of them in a sequence.
It doesn't have to do with the syllables. It has to do with something else. What is it, Dalton?
The first sound.
The first sound is the same. It can be more than 3. I always pick 3 because 2 just seems like an accident. We do it all the time on accident. But when you do it 3 times, it sounds like you meant something. And if you do it 4 or 5 times, go for it. I don't care. But if you end up with a tongue twister, it sounds a little silly in your paper. And remember, it's the beginning sound, not the beginning letter. So shell and chandelier alliterate, even though one starts with SH and one starts with CH. Kick and choir and kite. Oh, I know, we need a C one. Cat, yes, you said. All alliterate, even though we have a K, a C, and CH, because they all start with K. Does that make sense? They do not have to be, somebody mentioned this yesterday, they do not have to be in a row, like right next to each other. You can have them just in the same sentence is good enough. So if I said, the glasses gleamed in the glaring sun. I've got the in the before the glaring. That's fine. Glasses gleam, glaring. That's alliteration. Oh, yeah, you mean alliterate with a conjunction or a preposition? Yeah, that's not so good. Usually they are more important words. They are nouns or verbs or adjectives or adverbs that are alliterating. That's a good point, yes.
So if the words in writing this paper in Latin, would
If I were.
Like the Latin words have the first
Yes,
syllable.
you have to do that. Yes, you have to have them start at the same sound.
Or the translation.
I don't know.
Yeah, just a
Yeah, you know what? You're putting the extra work on yourself, and I'm just letting you pretty much be free with that. Okay. The third thing we're adding is an ing opener. Just to remind you, and this is your answer to the gerund question now. There are two different kinds of ways to start a word with a sentence with an ing word, which is just a verb ending in ing. Walking, running, skipping, jumping, eating, sleeping, playing, all of those. Okay, any verb. Not, are there, during, thank you. I was gonna say, what's a word that ends in ing? It's not a verb. So look at these two sentences. I just don't want this here. Eating cookies is the best part of Christmas, which may or may not be true. It is probably not true. Okay. Now, what is the verb of this sentence? What is the verb? Owen. Eating is not the verb. What is the verb? Cookies is always a noun. You can't cookie. If you could, I would have tried it already. Yes. Is. It's a linking verb. Is. What is in the sentence? What is the best? No. Eating. Eating is the best. Cookies just describes what I'm eating. Eating is part. That predicate noun. These are the parts of the sentence. Eating is best. And all the rest of it, we have a prepositional phrase, we have an adjective and an article adjective, and an object of the, what do you call that? It's an object of the gerund. That's not even a thing. Okay. That is a gerund. Whenever my ing is being a noun, if it's doing a thing that nouns can do, it's a gerund. I love eating cookies. I love what? No, I love eating. Eating. Cookies just tells you more about what I love to eat. My holidays were filled with eating cookies. Tells you a lot about my Christmas, doesn't it? No wonder I got sick. With eating cookies. It's a prepositional phrase. With what? With eating. It's being an object of the preposition. This is high caliber grammar, but you guys, I mean, you know this. You just forget. This is not the kind of ing that we're going for. After all that, I know, after all that. But it will, but you asked what a gerund was. This is a gerund. And also, now if we talk about this a lot, it will alert you, oh, I did the other one. Although you're probably going to sometimes write a gerund, and I'm not going to beat you. Yes?
Is this eating cookies? I love Christmas.
Yes. I'm going to use rats. Eating cookies. I love Christmas. I sound very pagan, don't I? All right. Yes, it does. It's not a great sentence, but here's the thing. Technically, whoever is doing the eating has to be the subject of the sentence. That's the ing opener. That's a participle. If I said eating cookies, Christmas is fun. Now Christmas is eating cookies. It would. Eating cookies. Eating cookies is simply, this is like a big adjective. What kind of eye? An eating cookies eye. All right? But if it's Christmas is fun, what kind of Christmas? An eating cookies Christmas? That doesn't make sense. This is when we get into that funny situation. I'm going to ditch the cookies now. Driving down the road Flowers were everywhere. All right, so we have our driving down the road, our little opener. The flowers have to be driving down the road in my sentence. I can't do that. It's called a dangling participle. It's just dangling out there. It's got nothing to attach itself to. I have to say, I saw flowers everywhere, right? And then I am the one driving down the road. So here's how to do this. Somebody give me a sentence, a really short sentence, just not with an ing, just a short sentence. Matthias, make it short. Make it make sense.
Romans were from Troy.
Okay, I like it. And it's even goes along with our history lesson. I love it. Okay, the Romans were from Troy. Now, I'm writing my paper, and I want an ing opener. I need an ing opener. Mrs. Ferguson's going to yell at me. There's no meanness involved, very little. Okay, I need to think of something else the Romans can be doing. What can it be? Oh, was that it? Oh, well, what was yours, Owen? Fighting. Okay, we'll try both of them. We could say sailing from their homeland, or let's sailing to Italy. That's shorter. All right, now, who is sailing? The Romans are sailing. I'm good. Sailing to Italy, the Romans were from Troy. What was the other one? The sailing, the fighting. Fighting many enemies. And do you see how what I've done? I had a sentence that was a perfectly fine sentence, but I wanted an ing opener. So I have to think of something else the subject can be doing. And I make it an ing, and I write it in a little phrase, a little descriptive adjective phrase in front of it. Yes?
How would I make ING
Well, you can't. Well, unless you've learned what how to do participles. The fourth principal part of a verb is the participle. So you're out of luck there.
Well, we did that last year. We did that last year.
What? The fourth principal part? So amatus, amari, amawi, amatus, amatus is actually an adjective, and it means, well, actually, no, the gerund is amans, amantus. It's like a third declension noun, amans, amantus, amanti, and it means loving. You've learned that? No, amans, amantus, amanti, Oh, yeah, but that's how you make a gerund in Latin. Okay, we're going to stop now because we have 7 kings to talk about and Aeneas to bring to Italy. Say that again.
Is a gerund what we want to put
A participle. So the second thing we did, where it's describing the subject of the sentence. That's what we're going for. That's what we're going for. Oh, you're right. And then I was describing how to do a gerund. I'm really messed up today. I apologize. Jesse, that was a gerund. The participle would be the fourth principal part. I was on the right track. So amatus means, except it's not an ing anymore. Their participles aren't ings. We usually translate having been loved or just loved. Okay. Are there any questions after all that rigmarole? Simile, alliteration, ing opener that's describing what your subject is doing. Whoever's inging should be your subject. And you have Roman dining. I have a poem on Roman dining. It is the only one I'm going to read today, but it seems appropriate. Are you ready? Lie down when you eat. That sounds really neat. That's just how Romans ate dinner. You'd lie on your side on a couch low and wide, not easy if you're a beginner. You'd reach with your hand for the food on a stand, no need for a fork, spoon, or knife. Dish followed dish, have a fig, have a fish. It was really a rather nice life. I love these poems. Now, I have to tell you one more story before we actually talk about the stuff we're supposed to talk about. Archaeologists found a pot of fish sauce. It was full of fish sauce. Guys, let me talk, okay? Fish sauce. It's called garum, G-A-R-U-M. And apparently the Romans like to put it on everything. And so it was old, but it was preserved. And so they studied it and they tried to remake it. You know, how did the Romans make this garum? And it's made out of fermented fish. And I just feel like I don't need to say anything beyond that. And it is disgusting. They all agreed, it's just disgusting. But you know, you get used to certain tastes if you grow up eating them. There's probably something weird that everybody in the world eats. Do you know what I mean? Somewhere in the world, someone eats, ketchup is a little weird. And so I threw a Roman dinner party for little kids once and so I wanted to have this, but I found in the Asian section, they had something called fish sauce. And I don't ever buy this. It's awful. So, okay, needless to say, none of these kids wanted to eat it. I didn't even want to smell it. And it was so bad, I didn't want to put it down the drain. I had to just go out and dump it in the weeds. It was very bad. But apparently this was a delicacy. They sprinkled, for a condiment, fish sauce.
It's good in like rice.
Okay.
Just in small amounts.
It's just small amounts. I can see that. Well, you know, if you go to Long John Silver's and they have malt vinegar, do you see a lot? See, I can just put a pile of it and dip malt vinegar. You know, and people look at me like, that's a lot of malt vinegar. I know, I love it. So, and some people don't even want to smell it. So there's no accounting for taste. Anyway, that's all I have to say about Roman dining. Do your 3 paragraphs, simile, alliteration, ing, not one in every paragraph, just one of each in the paper, okay? And get your reading questions out. Yes, Rhett. What? I don't even know what malt vinegar is. It's vinegar, but it's brown. My mother says, while you look up your questions, my mother says because I was born in Newfoundland and she ate lots of this while she was pregnant with me, that's why I like it. I don't think that's true. Okay. The 7 kings of Rome. Here, I do want that. Let's put them up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Who's the first king? This is easy, Romulus. We already talked about the fact that he killed his brother because his brother dissed his wall, which seems like if there ever is a good reason to kill your brother, that's not it. Don't kill your brother for that, though, ever, ever. Hey guys, stay with me. So Dorothy Mills tells us that, I'm in the wrong chapter. That's not what she tells us. Romulus made the city a sanctuary of refuge for all fugitives, where they received and protected all, delivering none back, neither the servant to his master, the debtor to his creditor, or the murderer into the hands of the magistrate, saying it was a privileged place. So, question. When you are a fugitive, when you are on the run, why are you probably on the run? Okay, was that? You did something bad. We don't run away when we do something good. We run away when we do something bad and we're going to get punished for it. So Rome was populated by people on the run because they needed people. It's not much of a city when you only have 2 or 3 people. You know, you need some people. And so, hey, everybody come to our new city. Everybody who is being pursued because you did something bad, Yeah, Jesse. What? I hope not. Now, there are more gentlemen than ladies in the room, but for the ladies' benefit, I will point out that 3, hello. These are all guys. All the ne'er-do-well, riffraff fugitives happen to be men, not ladies. You can just infer whatever you want to from that. Okay. Shh. So we can't have much of a city if we don't have any women, right? Because we'll all die eventually and we'll all die out. And so, how did they decide to get wives? Jesse, lay it on me. Oh, yeah, that's a very nice way of putting it. But would anyone like to elaborate on how they got these wives? No. You just Well, you're close. They kidnapped them. You've got half the story. So this, I don't know if you can see this very well. This is a close-up of Rome. Like this is a zoom in right here. And you see these various tribes. We have Etruscans and Sabines and Aequians and Volscians and Latins, all living very close. The Sabines were living very close to Rome. And the Romans, these brand new Romans, said, hey, Sabines, would you like to let us marry your daughters? No. You're a bunch of riffraff fugitives. We don't want your kind. All right. Okay, well, no hard feelings. We're going to have a party. We're going to have a festival to the gods. It's going to be awesome. Food, games, fun. Why don't you come? Bring your daughters. Make sure to bring your daughters and your wives and your sisters and all of them. And come. And they had decided at a particular signal, everybody grab the woman next to you and run off with her. I'm sorry, I can't even say it without laughing. It's not funny, but it's just, what? So they did. They kidnapped the women. And here's the part I don't understand. The Sabines don't instantly attack them. Because maybe they came without weapons. I don't know. Maybe they were just stunned into paralysis. I don't know. Hey guys, you need to let me talk, okay? We're all, I just love that we're so lively. I love it, but it makes me then talk louder and louder and my voice gets really tired because it's so echoey in here. They go home and they just regroup and think about what they're going to do. So then they finally get it together and they come to fight, but time has passed. And so we have the Sabine dads and brothers and sometimes husbands, frankly, because they didn't really ask the women they grabbed, are you already married? They just grabbed, all right? On this side, and we have the Romans here and they're getting ready to fight. And the women come out and they stand between the two groups and say, oh, don't fight, don't fight. We love you guys because you're our family, but we love our new husbands now too. We don't want anybody to get hurt. I don't know what to say when I tell this story, but yeah. So this is how Romans got wives. So we have many strikes here. Killed brother, check. Invited all fugitives and criminals, check. Kidnapped women, check. We're just checking them off. I'm not really selling Rome here. So the Sabines said, look, all right, you got our women, fine. and nothing we can do about it now. But here's what we ask. We want two kings. We want a Roman king and a Sabine king. Let's have a joint rule. Spartans did that. They had two kings. And so they said, okay. So Romulus was joined by a guy named Titus Tatius, and he was a Sabine king. He didn't live super long, though, so then Romulus just gets to be king again by himself. Yes, Matthew? Well, possibly, but as far as we know, he died of like old age or natural causes. But Romulus, on the other hand, organized his fugitives and their kidnapped wives, but everybody apparently didn't love Romulus. Some of the first settlers in Rome that joined him, the first people that came, felt like Romulus was maybe a little too big for his britches. Maybe he's getting a little too bossy. We all started the city together. And one day, Romulus went out with some of the leading senators, because they had a senate of lawmakers that worked with Romulus. And while they were gone, a big storm came up. And dark wind and rain and hail. And then after it's over, Romulus is just gone. He's just gone. And they go back to the city and they said, I don't know what happened. There was a storm, and then he was just gone. And I think the gods just swooped him up and took him up to the heavens. But there were people in Rome that said, yeah, I know what happened to Romulus. You don't get along with Romulus very well. And I know what happens when a group of guys goes out and then one of them doesn't come back. I know very well what happened. This was a problem for a little while, I don't know, a month or two. And then one day, a guy rushes into Rome and he rushes to the Senate and he says, you won't believe what happened. I was walking out on the highway, out on the roads, in the fields, and suddenly a voice from the heavens boomed around me. And I saw a vision, and it was Romulus. And he came and he said, I have been whisked into heaven, and I am now a god, and you should make a temple to me. And the Senate, see, we told you. But there were still people who said, yeah, I wonder how much the Senate paid him to say that. We don't know. But unfortunately, I'm not painting a very positive picture of the beginning of the city that's going to rule the world. But Romulus, whisked away or killed by the Senate, he was gone. And they needed a new king. And this is where the Sabines start pitching a fit again. We only had a king for a little while. You should pick one of us to be the next king. And after some hemming and hawing, they did. Second king's name was Numa Pompilius. And this is one of the questions I asked you. What was most important to him? What did he spend most of his time on, Matthew? Okay, living a simple life, yes. Dalton, is there something else Peace, and one more thing. I mean, all these things are true. Oh, they took all yours? Let me see if I always like to prove it to you. So I don't just say things like she just made that up. No, I'm reading it from the book. Okay. Numa has been called the founder of Roman religion. I mean, the things you said were true. So religion, peace, and simplicity, all right? He says, look, we have had all sorts of fighting. Time out on the fighting, because you know what? When you're busy fighting other people all the time, you're not writing laws for your people and judging cases. And you know, when you're in wartime, it's hard to grow your crops and build your houses and take care of your families. We need a stronger city. And the way to do that is to have peace and to worship the gods. And so Numa was fond of telling people that he went out in the woods and a goddess named Egeria came and she gave him laws. Nothing to say about that at all. And then he would come back and give the laws to the people. But he set up basically what Roman religion is going to be for the whole time Rome is ruling. The whole time Rome, I was going to say that there is a Rome, there still is a Rome, but you know what I mean, the empire. He built a temple to a god, an Etruscan god named Janus. Janus has, oh, I'm very, very bad. No, I'm going to do it even though it's just a bad idea. All right, this is a face. Oh, my kids used to do a. Okay, that's yeah, and then. Okay, that's not so bad. That's not so bad. All right, and he needs an eye. Oh, that's a really, really high. Okay, that's not too bad. So this god has. I'm actually kind of proud of that. 2 faces. This is the god. Don't laugh. Of doorways. First of all, because think about it. Every time, this will make your life exciting if you think of this. Every time you walk through a doorway, you have entered a new space. Every time you have left something behind and you've entered a new space. Every doorway. It was also the temple that, if they were at peace, they closed the temple doors. And if they were at war, they opened the doors. Numa built the temple, and because they were at peace, they closed the doors. It is not a mistake that the month we are currently in Janus. It is the month of the doorway into a new year. That is why we call it January. That is why we call it January. Right there. Because we look back to the old year and forward to the new year. No, literally open and closed. I don't know. I don't totally know what that means. I mean, I think, you can say a building has doors, right? So I think literally they were open. Literally open and literally closed. Numa closed the doors. They're only been closed twice again in the entire history of Rome, the 1,000-year history of Rome. Because they're always fighting someone. Numa was a really, really good king, but he didn't live forever. We never do. And the next guy, Tullus Hostilius, he is the opposite. Tell me, elaborate. Yeah, everything is boring. Peace is so boring. Oh my gosh. We need a good war. People are just going to treat us like doormats. They're going to walk all over us and do anything they want if we don't stand up for ourselves. Not to mention, you're all laying around and eating bonbons and getting fat and lazy. We need to go out there and get some exercise. What did you say? You know what? Somebody asked me that yesterday. I would like to say that again because Matthew said something really good. Yes, is that why his last name is Hostilius? Because he's hostile? And I don't know. I do know that Romans had a habit of giving names based on traits, sometimes even physical traits. There's the guy who has his family name was based on the fact that he had a kind of a wart. One of his ancestors had a wart on his nose that looked a bit like a garbanzo bean. And his Cicero. That's what it means. I know. And he said, I'm going to make the name great. I don't care where it came from. So maybe he got the name because he was a hostile sort of person, because that is the Roman word it comes from. At any rate, he said, we need to get up off the couch and get some exercise and conquer some people while we're at it. And so he started doing this, and he went to Alba. So you can see Rome. Alba is right here, and this is a close-up. So it's very, very close. Alba Longa, is a town that Aeneas' son Ascanius, also known as Iulus, is going to found after the Aeneid. So they're kind of relatives, sort of relatives, but that doesn't stop them from fighting them. And so they start fighting, but the other side says, well, here's the thing. We're going to fight and a lot of people are going to die. And it would just be a lot easier if you picked a few champions and we picked a few champions, and then you just fight it out. And we'll all sit around and watch. Popcorn, soda, whatever. And then whoever is the last man standing, that side wins. And we will incorporate your population into our city. Okay, great. So the Romans pick 3 brothers. They are the Horatius brothers, also known as Horatii, plural. And the Albans pick the Curiatii, the Curiatius brothers, also 3. Everybody gathers around and the 3 start fighting. Horatius 1, the Roman guy, dies. Horatius 2, Roman guy, dies. Oh, did you do this? Oh yeah, so you guys know the story. Awesome. And then there's one guy left, 3 guys, so but they're all wounded, right? They're all wounded. So this Horatius guy, he's smart. And he says, okay, I'm going to run. I'm going to act like I'm running. And they're going to follow me. But they can't all follow at the same pace because they're wounded in different ways. And they're going to follow me as they are able. And it's going to separate them. And I'll take them out one by one. This is exactly what he did. So he runs. First guy catches up. And he turns around and kills him. He's running. Second guy catches up and he kills him. That's 1-1. He takes out the final Curiatius brother. And the crowd goes wild, right? Rome's like, we win. The Albans, unfortunately, we're going to destroy your town. And we're going to incorporate you all. Sorry about that. But yes, are you thinking of the rest of the story? Maybe your Latin thing didn't tell you the rest. I'm going to tell it.
They actually knew each other. The Horatius brothers and the Romans. And they would hunt together.
Yes.
They knew each other.
Yes, because, and here's what happened. Oh, Matthew, yes, you do know. Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh. So the last Curiatius brother, the Horatius brother takes the cloak from him. He's got a nice cloak. Turns out the Horatius brother's sister is dating the Curiatius guy, and she made the cloak. And she sees him coming in with the cloak. It's got blood splattered on it, and she's like, oh, my dear Curatius. I don't know his first name. Publius. And her brother turns around and kills her.
What?
Just kills her. Right there. Oh, yeah. And they grab him and they say, whoa, we don't just kill our sisters here. I'm taking you to trial. And their dad came to court and said, yeah, I'm with him. He did the right thing. So must perish all who mourn an enemy of Rome. Wow. See, that's another check on the list. Kill our sisters. We're okay with that. Check. I love this part. Okay. Moving on. Tullus dies, and Ancus Marcius is our next king. You don't have to be writing these. I mean, they're in your book, but I'm just writing them down so we can kind of have a visual. And Ancus Marcius, here's what Dorothy Mills tells us. Oh, first of all, she tells us he's the grandson of Numa. So we might think he's inclined to peace and, religion. Yes, very good, very good. Yeah, it says he believed that peace had been the great need for Rome in the days of Numa, but he saw it would not be possible to preserve that peace unbroken in his own time. He set out with an army and defeated his enemies and took their city and transferred the whole population to Rome. He expanded the city, but that's an interesting thing. Sometimes, I don't know how to describe this. You know how in the book of Ecclesiastes, there's a famous, I think it's chapter 3, where it says there's a time for everything. Do you know the passage that I'm talking about? A time for war, a time for peace, a time for laughing, a time for grieving. And I wonder if there's just times in history when you have to stand up and fight, and then there's times when you need peace. I mean, I'm not pro-war. I'm not saying, but do you know what I mean? How history, there's an ebb and a flow to it, and you need a leader who can recognize what sort of time you're living in. For example, we all agree World War II, it was a time for war. Like the rest of the world, the Allies felt like they were doing what they had to do at the moment. That if we just said, oh, we don't want to be bothered with that, we just want peace, that wasn't the right time for that. That was a time to stand up and fight for what was right. And so, but Ancus Marcius said, okay, I love Grandpa, but his times are not my times. And I feel like we need a balance. So can we hold on to that? What are the names of the 7 hills of Rome? We're just going to skip that, and we're going to do that later, okay? So we're going to do it, but because I want to do something fun with it, but I need to erase things first. There was a guy living in Tarquinia here, not very far from Rome. And his name is Lucius Tarquinius Priscus. He is. And he came to Rome. His wife said, your talents are wasted in Tarquinii. Rome is the happening place. If a person with talent can show up in Rome and rise through the ranks, and you can become a great person, we should just move to Rome. Okay. He was actually of Greek descent, but his wife was Etruscan. And so they did. And he actually worked his way up. He became sort of guardian, tutor of the king's sons, Ancus Marcius' sons, and worked his way up until Ancus Marcius died. Now, this hadn't happened really before, but the king died and he has sons. So one would think that the sons of the former king might be a choice. But Tarquin waited till they left town, and then he went around shaking hands and telling people what a good king he would make. And they elected him king while the former king's sons were gone. I think hunting.
Like they were on vacation.
I don't know. They were hunting. It was just a day. It was just a day trip. But he spent the whole day well, and they chose him king. And needless to say, they're not real happy. All right, right. But he's not a bad king at all. But he has a problem we will talk about in a minute. In his household, one day, there was a young boy, Servius Tullius. And they argue about this. Historians argue. He was maybe the son of a slave woman in the palace, maybe just not a slave, but just living there. Anyway, his head caught on fire, like they do. Did you notice? Ascanius' head. Apparently it's a thing. And so they're getting water to dump on his head. And Tarquin's wife says, wait a minute. It doesn't look like real, but let's see what happens. And so eventually the kid woke up, and the light, the flames subside, and he's fine. And she says to her husband, look, that kid's special. Not just everybody's head catches on fire, although it does happen occasionally. This kid is special. We need to train him, because this is a sign from the gods. And they did. And so Servius Tullius ends up being the next king. So you're definitely yeah. And now Tarquin has sons. We have the same problem. And Tarquin dies, and his wife says to Servius Tullius, look, she says, put a lid on the fact that the king is dead, just for a little while. Just pretend he's sort of not well, but going to get better. In the meantime, you start taking the reins of power. You start convening the Senate, not his sons. His wife wants Servius to be the next king. His head was on fire, Rhett. I don't know. This is an unanswerable argument. His head was on fire. And now Tarquin, I'm sorry, Servius Tullius took over. They finally announced that the king was actually dead, but at this point he had power. And he said, okay, don't feel bad, sons of Tarquin. I will marry my 2 daughters to your 2 sons. So you'll be next in line, or your children will be kings eventually. And so we have 2 daughters of Servius Tullius, both named Tullia, because you always name your daughter the family name, all of them. Yeah, oh yeah. And I don't know, I'm sure they must have had nicknames at home. We have two Tullias and Tarquin brothers, okay? So follow me. Tarquin number 1 is a rotter through and through, but Tullia 1, she's pretty nice. Okay, Tarquin number 2 is pretty nice, but Tullia 2 is a rotter, all right? And you know what? The 2 rotters found each other, like they do. The 2 rotters found each other and said, we could take over if only we could get rid of these 2, you know? So they did. They each bumped off their spouses and got together, and they said, here's what's going to happen. We are going to just march in there, and it's a coup. It's a coup. And they did. So Tarquinius Superbus, which means Tarquin the haughty, or Tarquin the proud, okay? He marches into the Senate, and he just sits down in the king's chair. And the king comes in and says, what's the deal? So I'm the king now, and you're done, old man. And he just throws him down the steps, throws him out the Senate. And Tullia too, the rotter Tullia, is outside. This is her dad, and she ran him over with her chariot. Check. Okay, another thing on the... Ran over your dad with the chariot, check. I ran over you. She ran over him. I couldn't make this up. It's too good. Okay, I'm probably... Oh, yeah, I already blew the what marked Servius Tullius as someone with a great future. Sorry about that. His head was on fire, if you didn't catch that. Can I just tell you the story of the final question? Oh, yeah, but he wasn't well. But, oh, no. Here, just a second. Oh, okay. You know what? I don't even, maybe, did they list them? We'll skip back to that one. Hold on to that, okay? Because this is too much fun. We got to finish this off. So, okay, somebody tell me what you wrote so I don't blow this question out of the water. Why did the Romans finally get rid of their kings? Because this is king number 7. Why, Jesse? He was a jerk. Anybody want to elaborate before I tell a longish story? Okay, here's in what way they are bad. Yes, Jesse, you got more? Okay, I'm going to tell you that because we got more. Check. All right. Tarquin the Proud has a son named Sextus Tarquinius. And he's got buddies, peeps. One of them is named Brutus, and one of them is named Collatinus. And they're always fighting. Rome is always camped somewhere nearby fighting one of these neighboring cities. I think at this time they're fighting Veii here, which is really close to Rome. In fact, so close that if I'm in the army camp and I want to, I can just walk home to Rome. Like get a sandwich or something and then come back to the army camp. It's really close. So these guys hang out together. They're actually cousins. Brutus and Collatinus are a side family of the Tarquin family. And in fact, once they got sent to Greece together to consult the oracle about who was going to be in charge after Tarquin, and the oracle at Delphi said, the first one who kisses his mother. I'm like, okay, we got to run back to the ship. We got to get home, kiss mom. But Brutus thought, you know what? That's kind of a weird thing to say. And the oracle never says what it means. I think the earth is our mother. The earth is the mother of all of us. So they came down the hill and he pretended to trip and he just face planted into the ground and he kissed the ground. He kissed the earth, his mother. He's like, done, got it. So Brutus is smart. They go back, they're encamped at Veii, and they're sitting around, I don't know, roasting s'mores over the fire after a long, hard day, killing people. And they're talking about the various excellences of their wives. Like, my wife's awesome. No, my wife's better than your wife. So finally, Collatinus says, no, my wife beats them all. My wife's the best. They said, well, we can solve this right now. Let's just go back to Rome. We just walk back to Rome and let's check out our wives. Let's see what they're doing while they're alone. Are they having parties? Are they, living wild? Are they modest and at home and doing their job? And we can check out their varying beauty levels. So they go and they check them out. And the two wives are, not great. But Lucretia, Collatinus's wife, she's awesome. She's gorgeous. She's home, she's minding her own business, she's ordering her servants, she's spinning wool into thread, and everybody's like, okay, Lucretia wins. Sextus Tarquinius really was impressed with Lucretia. He was too impressed. And he snuck back the next day and assaulted her. So she has a dinner party, little dinner party, invites her husband, invites Brutus, invites her dad, and says, guess what that dirty, rotten scoundrel did? I will tell you. What are you going to do about it? Because here's what I'm going to do about it. And she just stabbed herself right in front of him. Just stabbed herself. Because of the shame and the dishonor that she felt. What are you going to do about it? I said, well, here's what we're going to do about it.
No.
Well, they didn't. I know. They said, look, your family is out. You get what you can carry. You get out of Rome. We do not have kings anymore. We will never have kings anymore. We are changing the government because this is what it has become. Oh, can you turn to the timeline? We need to add that to our timeline. On page 71. 509. 509. Kings expelled from Rome. So it's going to be right above 500, right? Your line on that, your timeline on that page ends at 500 BC, so right above that. 509. So 753. Founding of Rome, 509. Let's do our math. 4, 4, 2. 244 years they've had kings. That is a while. That's a long time. Do you know, what America is roughly 250 years old to, 260, something like that. Yeah, that's like us just saying, we're not going to have presidents anymore. We're completely changing the government. The Constitution is out. It's amazing. Next week, you are going to read about what sort of government they decided to set up, all right? I haven't forgotten about the 7 Hills of Rome, but let me talk about the second chapter that I had you read real quick, and then we'll go to that. I also had you read a short chapter about what Rome was like during the time of the kings. And I just wanted to point out a couple of things that she mentioned in the book. First of all, for much of Roman history, there were 2 groups of people, and they just didn't get along. The first group were called the patricians. Patricians comes from pater, father, right? So these are the descendants of the fathers of Rome. they're the fugitives, right? Except after 200 years, the fugitives clean up really nice, and they seem very respectable now. They're descendants. They say, we were here first. We should have privileges. And they did. They were the only people that could be senators. They were the only people who could hold the other offices under the government. The rest of the people who were later comers were called the plebeians. Plebeians weren't necessarily poor, although many of them ended up poor. They were the rank and file of the army for all these wars that they fight. But they had no vote. They had no ability to hold office of any kind. And I think you can see how that ticks them off. It probably would you. If you're out in the front lines fighting all these wars, and then you come home and you're treated like a second-class citizen. I'm not going to put up with that forever. And you know what? They didn't. And so as we read through the semester, we're going to see these two groups of people butting heads. And this group more and more saying, I want more rights, I want more rights, I want more rights. Jesse, what were you going to say?
What ended up happening to the competition? Who's won?
Well, Lucretia won. That's why she was so impressive. Yeah. So keep this in mind as we read. Another thing that she points out in this chapter is that many of the ideas and practices of the Romans came from the Etruscans. Remember we talked last week about there were Greeks and Etruscans were the two major players in Italy. And one of these was the idea, I feel like one of you sneaks up and just hides things, but I know it's not true. I know I hide them from myself. It's very annoying. In the Etruscan government, the Etruscan leaders had a person who would walk before the leader, and he would carry a bundle of rods. All right, and they're tied together. This is very bad. And there is an axe attached to them, okay? A rods and an axe. And this lovely thing is called the fasces, all right? Rods with an axe. And the person who walks before you is called a lictor, and he holds this as you are walking through the streets. He goes before you, and this is the message. I can have you beaten with these rods or chop your head off with the axe. Do not forget, I can have you beaten or killed. It's not a very nice message, right? But it's power. And the Romans liked this idea. And so all of the kings, and then later, the people who take over when they form their new government that we'll talk about next week, the leaders, they also have these. They have lictors that go before them with the fasces and say, just FYI, do not forget, I can have you beaten or killed. I don't think so. Because, if you have something that flexes a little bit, it can give you a nice sting. This is why kids used to get spanked with switches cut off trees, because they're thin and they whip a little bit. It stings. And they took this from the Etruscans, is my point. That the Roman people are not just Trojan. We're going to talk about Aeneas here in a minute. But they adopted the practices of the people around them, including like the god Janus, who's an Etruscan god. Okay. Next week, I want you to start chapter 6, but you're only reading parts 1 through 3. Okay? Chapter 6 has 7 parts or something like that. It's really long. If your book looks like mine, this is pages 67 through 86. But if it doesn't, it's chapter 6, parts 1 through 3, which is actually in your reading guide because your questions are there for next week. All right, let's tackle the 7 hills. Let's see A. If I just randomly put that on there, without it being mentioned in the book. I have to look at what I put after. Oh, okay, it was right after Numa Pompilius. Hold on. Oh, you know what? So this is really good to know. You don't have this picture in your book? Some of you maybe don't. Because if you don't, I want to take that question out of the reading guide. And they're all labeled. That is on page 47. Yes.
It's on 48 in these books.
Okay. Okay. So the 7 hills, I'm looking at this picture. The Quirinal, the Viminal, the Esquiline, the Capitoline, the Palatine, the Celian, and the Aventine. Last week, I read you a poem about these, and I thought it would be fun for those of you who wish to join me in this, to memorize them. What? Well, the geniculum, are you looking at the geniculum? It's sort of not count. I know it's a hill too, but it's not counted as one of them because it was always outside the walls. The poem says, that lists them in this order: the Viminal, the Aventine, the Quirinal, the Esquiline, the Palatine, the Celian, the Capitoline. And I thought that if you would like to memorize these, it would be a good thing for us to make up a mnemonic device, a little saying that starts with the beginning letters. If someone wants to, my kids yesterday made one up. We can use theirs, but we can also make our own, which will be a challenge to me because I'll never know which, or I'll but memorize it double, which is good. Very seems like a good V word. Very anxious. Very anxious. Very anxious quails. Oh, I like it. Quails. Eat. Popcorn. Oh, yeah. Corn. Crumbs. And we need one more thing they eat. Could they?
Continuously.
Oh, this is brilliant. It's almost like poetry.
I just said constantly.
Oh. Well, you know what? If you like constantly, continuously and constantly sort of mean the same thing. Very anxious quails eat popcorn crumbs constantly. Viminal, Aventine, Quirinal, Esquiline, Palatine, Celian, Capitoline. They did very angry, quiet eagles peck chicken coops. Now I got to remember both these. No, it's your job to remember. Somebody write it. Is somebody writing this down? Okay. So practice it. Let's see if, we all know the 7 Hills of Rome by Easter.
I think it's hilarious.
Sure.
I think it's hilarious how that one dude in your class,
Horatius at the Bridge.
rolling, and then now we're having trouble memorizing the 7.
Well, it was Horatius at the Bridge that not the Song of Roland, which is even longer. Well, no, the Song of Roland, the legit Song of Roland, is really long. It's like 100 pages, but no, it was Horatius at the Bridge. But yes, no, we can do this. We can do this. It's good for us. That's okay. Jesse is writing it down. Jesse is the class secretary and scribe now. We're going to work on it.
No.
Oh, were you not done? Thank you. You know what? We are not going to have, you know what happens? People start arguing over continuously and constantly, and pretty soon somebody starts killing somebody else. We know what happens in these stories. We need to nip it right now. All right, let's talk about Aeneas. we got to read again, because you read this in the retelling of the Trojan War, about the fall of Troy. The guys pour out of the wooden horse and just demolish Troy. But we get to hear it in this book from the perspective of Troy. And it's just horrifying. You know, when you hear the Greek, oh, yay, finally, after 10 years, we're taking the city, yay, rah. But when you are a Trojan and this is happening to your city, it's horrifying. So, Aeneas either wakes up or has a dream. Don't know. And do you remember who appears to him in this vision? She does appear to him later, but he has a bunch of appearances. All right, but a former Trojan hero appeared to him. Do you remember? Hector. Hector shows up in his bedroom, and Hector's not looking so good. Hector doesn't look all nice and neat like he did after, you know, his mom, you know, after the gods came and anointed him with ambrosia and everything. He looks like he did after Achilles had been dragging him around on his chariot, behind his chariot. And Aeneas said, Hector, what? We need you. Where have you been? What are you doing? We need you. And Hector said, even if I were here, it's done. I couldn't stop it now. They're in, and the city's on fire, and you need to get up and get out. And and the vision disappears, or he wakes up, whatever. And his first instinct is to just grab his armor and grab his sword and get out there and start fighting. And he roams through the city. It's awful. It's awful. He finds a band of other guys who are fighting back, and they say, hey, we'll take out these Greek guys and we'll take their armor. We'll put on their armor. We'll look like Greeks, which works fine until they meet up with some other Trojans who now start trying to kill them because they think they're Greeks. Like, wait a minute, take off the helmet. It's me, Aeneas. He goes to the palace, and it's horrific. King Priam and Queen Hecuba are grabbing the altar, like I was talking about earlier, for sanctuary. You know, it just wasn't done. You don't kill people when they're holding onto the altar of the gods. You don't do it. But Achilles' son does. Kills their son right in front of them. Aeneas sees all this going down. And he said, I'm just going to fight to the death. Now his mom appears, his mom Venus, and says, Aeneas, you are not destined to die here. You've got a job. You need to gather the survivors, and the gods have a job for you. You're going to go found a new civilization. Gather who you can. In the meantime, you've got a family at home. You've got a dad and a wife and a son. You need to get home and protect them. Not to mention, this is a fight you can't win. She said, let me show you who's really fighting here. And she takes away, I don't know, the fog, the mist, whatever it is that usually makes the gods invisible. She takes it away. And he sees Neptune is just prying rocks out of the wall and knocking them down. Juno's just smashing things. The gods are taking out Troy. The Greeks are just their tool. The gods are angry at Troy. You can't fight it. Go home and take care of your family. So he goes home, and his dad Anchises says, nope, I'm old. I'll lift your arm left, not going anywhere, not leaving. Aeneas, please, Dad, please. Do you think I can actually leave you here to just die? Like, not leaving. Fortunately, this is when Ascanius' head catches on fire, right? Yay. Aeneas' son, his head starts to glow. A flame, you know what it reminds me of in the translation that I usually use? It says a tongue of flame rests on his head. It reminds me of like Pentecost. Tongue of flame rests on his head. And Anchises, Aeneas' dad, sees it and says, that's a sign. I'm in. Let's do it. And famously, I brought this picture. This is a painting from 1615. And it is Aeneas. And he lifts his old father Anchises up on his shoulders. Here, I'm just going to come, I think if I come right here, then everybody can kind of see. And Aeneas' wife hands him their household gods. This isn't really a Trojan thing, it's a Roman thing. The Romans had little alcoves set up in their houses with the gods of their family. Each family had its own gods that protected, sort of like, in Asia, the spirits of the ancestors or something like this. And take the gods and take your little son Ascanius by the hand. And this is the most famous image of Aeneas, the idea that Aeneas takes his dad on his shoulders and leads his son by the hand and says, okay, all you people who are with me, you remember there's a tree, there's a hill outside of Troy. Everybody get out of the city and we'll meet up there. Get out however you can. It's better if we don't stay in a group, because we're not as obvious. And they all get there, and then Aeneas gets there, and his wife Creusa isn't there. Like, shoot, well, I need to go find her. So he goes back into the city, and he's walking through, and suddenly she's there, but she's not there. Because he tries to hug her 3 times, and 3 times his hands just go right through her. And she says, I'm not going. I'm sorry, I got separated, and I'm gone. You need to move on, because you're going to have a new home. And someday you're going to have a new family, a new wife and family, because that's what the gods have decreed for you. So they meet up, and now they're going to take a trip. Except they're not sure where. That's the problem with this whole journey. They're not sure where the trip goes to. So they leave Troy, which is right here. And it's a very quick hop, skip, and a jump up to Thrace. Right? Let's just go up here. This seems like a good place. I'm tired. I've been fighting for 10 years. I don't want to sail all over. Let's just go there. Let's build a new city there. And they start digging foundations, and the ground bleeds. I think in the children's version, you always know you're going to get the upgraded from the children's version from me. It says something bad happened there, and they decided not to stay. Okay, so the ground bleeds and moans. This is never a good sign, ever. And so, and he says, "What? Who are you? What is it?" And he says, "Well, I'm Priam's youngest son, Polydorus. And Dad sent me to the king of Thrace for safekeeping. And as soon as the king of Thrace knew that Troy had fallen, he killed me and took all my money and threw my body out. You don't want to stay here, Aeneas. This is a nasty place." And Aeneas agrees. We're going to move on. So they move on. This is all, of course, conjecture on the map, because they go to places that we don't really know if they exist, but this is roughly, okay? So they head down the coast to Crete, because one of the oracles had said, you need to go to the home of your parents, the home of your fathers. And Anchises says, pretty sure that the founder of Troy came from Crete. Let's go to Crete. Great. They go to Crete. They start building a city. Everything goes wrong. There's a plague. Everything goes wrong. And Aeneas says, well, shoot, we're going to have to go back to Apollo at Delphi and find out what's the deal. Where does he want us to go? But that night he has another dream, and Apollo comes to him and says, you know what? You don't need to come to Delphi. I'm going to tell you right now. It's Italy. Hesperia, they call it, which means the West. All right, Hesperia. Because for them, it's West. And this is where you're supposed to go. Great. So they head towards Italy, and they end up in southern Italy. And they get off the boat for supplies, and suddenly they see a town, but it looks just like Troy. but it's smaller. And there's a river, and they hear people calling it the Simois River, which is the river that was by Troy. And then they come and they see this lady, and she looks very familiar. And she's standing outside a little temple that's a temple to Hector. And she's pouring out libations to Hector. And they say, what? Who are you? And she turns around, and it's Hector's wife, Andromache. All the women of Troy were divvied out as slaves to the Greeks. And Andromache got given to Achilles' son, Pyrrhus. He's kind of a jerk. And through a long, convoluted story that I will not retell, Pyrrhus ends up dead, and Andromache ends up free and married to Helenus, Hector's brother. And you know what they did? They decided to build a little Troy. We're just going to go to Italy and have a little Troy. We're just going to live permanently in the past. Hector's not really in this tomb, but we're going to pretend he is, and we're going to call it Hector's tomb. We're going to call the river by the same name. We're going to call all the gates by the same names. It is pretty cool. And you know what? It's very tempting. Because at this point, Aeneas is frustrated, a little tired. His companions are a little frustrated and tired. Like, can't we just stay here? Can't we just stay here? It's perfectly nice. Why don't we just stay? And Helenus happens to be a prophet. It's very handy. And he says, Aeneas, this is not the place for you to stay. The gods have a plan for you. You know, you took your dad on your shoulders. He's like the past, right? Your dad and your grandpa and your great-grandpa, they're like your past. But you also took your son by the hand. He's kind of like your future, you know? And eventually you're going to have to lay down the past. And you're going to have to move into the future. We're going to stay in the past. We like the past. You don't have that luxury, Aeneas. So they head out again. And Helenus gives them some clues about what they should do and avoid. And he warns them about Sicily. He says, look, don't go through the narrow strait between Italy and Sicily, because that's where Scylla and Charybdis are. You know, Scylla, she lives up in a cave. Do you remember this from the Odyssey part of our retelling? She has a bunch of heads, and she just swoops down. She eats people off the boats as they come by. Which is a bummer. She has 6 heads. She can eat 6 at once. But if you sail too far away from her on the other side, it's Charybdis. It's a big whirlpool that periodically just fires up and just sucks down everything. This is better. It's really better if you just go all the way around. It's longer, but you should avoid Scylla and Charybdis. They go around, and then they put in an island, and this guy comes running towards them. And he's Greek. And he sees them. He's like, oh my gosh, they're Trojans. He stops and he thinks for a minute. He's like, I don't care. Okay, whatever, kill me. Yes, I'm a Greek. Kill me if you want to. I would rather you kill me than stay on this island. I'm like, what's the deal? What's wrong? He says, well, I sailed here with Odysseus, Ulysses, the Romans call him. I sailed here with Ulysses. And I'm telling you, there's huge monsters with one big eye. It's horrible. And they just whack your brains out and eat you for lunch, breakfast, and dinner. And Ulysses blinded one of them and got on his boat and got away. And they all sailed away and they left me here. And I've just been hiding. I don't think this part was in the story. I think Odysseus stopping there with the Cyclops. But I don't remember if that retelling talked about this. Maybe we did. I can't remember it. And yeah, and the part of this story that I love is I always wonder if Ulysses had stopped there and there had been a Trojan guy, would he have just said, sure, get on the boat and get away with us? I feel like he would have killed him. But Aeneas says, sure, we don't care. The past is in the past. We're not at war anymore. We're not going to leave you here for the monsters. Get on the boat. The Greek guy joins them. And they keep traveling around Sicily. And this was at the end of your reading, and his dad died. After saying, Aeneas, stay the course. The gods have a plan for you. You've got to go to Hesperia. You've got to get there and start this city. It's a great privilege. Don't give up. And he dies, and they bury him there. And so the past, his dad on his shoulders, he lays it to rest, doesn't he? And he's got a son, he's got a future. He's got to do it. But he's tired. He's not totally sure where this place in Italy is he's supposed to go. So what I want you to do for next week is read the next 5 chapters. All right? They don't have numbers. Did you have trouble counting 5 chapters? Okay. Like you're all intelligent enough for this. Read 6 through 10. And I will just give you a couple of hints. First of all, he doesn't get to Italy right away, even though he's in Sicily, which one would think, well, we can use this map now. It's really close. But I also want you to look at something else on this map. There's another place that's really close. Did you ever realize how close Africa is to Italy? Africa is very close. Unfortunately, this doesn't have a key. This one does, and my wonderful finger tells me like less than 200 miles from Sicily to Carthage. Note this city, Carthage. So we're gonna meet some people in Carthage in the next reading, and just notice how close it is. This is why they end up in Africa. In case you're wondering, why in the world is he in Africa? He was in Italy. He was going to Italy. Yeah, because it's really, really close. All right? So, chapter 6, parts 1 through 3, find out what kind of government the Romans set up. Write me 3 paragraphs about Roman dining, and read chapters 6 through 10 of the Aeneid, and also have a lovely week. And I will see you next time. Thank you. Thank you also for your energy. Sorry I have to sometimes tune you, but I love the fact that you guys care and you have things to say. It's much nicer than if you just sat there like that. That would be a bummer.